Have you ever noticed that the people who disrespect you the most are often the ones who know exactly how to make you react? They say the one comment that ruins your whole day. They ignore you, and suddenly you can't stop thinking about why. They provoke you, and within seconds your calm is gone, your peace is gone, and somehow, they're still standing there, unaffected, while you're the one falling apart inside. Have you ever wondered why that happens? Why some people seem completely untouchable, while others, maybe you, feel like every insult, every slight, every dismissive glance has the power to wreck an entire afternoon? Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not because those people don't feel anything. It's because somewhere along the way, they learned something most people never learn. They learned that reacting is a choice. Not a reflex. A choice. And the moment you understand that, really understand it, not just nod along and forget it by tomorrow, something in you shifts. People lose their grip on you. Words lose their sting. Silence stops feeling like rejection. You stop handing your peace of mind to strangers, coworkers, exes, and people who never deserved that kind of power over you in the first place. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how that shift happens. The ancient Stoic principle behind it, why your brain is wired to fight against it, and the exact daily practice that turns emotional control from a nice idea into a lived reality. Stay until the end, because the third lesson is the one that changes everything, and most people give up right before they get there. Before we go further, if you're tired of letting other people's words, moods, and opinions control how your day goes, and you're ready to build a calmer, stronger mind, take 1 second right now to like this video and subscribe. Every lesson on this channel is built to help people like you become harder to shake, harder to manipulate, and impossible to control. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Think about the last time someone got under your skin. Maybe it was a comment from a family member that cut deeper than it should have. Maybe it was a coworker who took credit for your work. Maybe it was someone who simply stopped responding to your texts, and you spent hours constructing theories about why. In that moment, did you feel powerful? Or did you feel like something outside of you had just reached into your chest and taken the wheel? Most of us have been taught, without ever being told directly, that our emotions are supposed to be automatic responses to whatever happens around us. Someone insults you, you get angry. Someone ignores you, you feel hurt. Someone criticizes your work, you feel small. It feels so natural that we rarely stop to ask, does it have to work this way? This is the mistake almost everyone makes, and it isn't a character flaw, it's biology. Your brain evolved to react fast. Thousands of years ago, hesitation could get you killed. A fast emotional reaction to a threat was survival. But the world you live in now is not a forest full of predators. It's full of opinions, comments, tones of voice, and social situations, and your ancient nervous system treats almost all of them like emergencies. This is where an old philosophy, born nearly 2,000 years ago in the middle of chaos, war, and political betrayal, offers something modern psychology is only now catching up to. It's called Stoicism, and its central insight is almost shockingly simple. You are not responsible for what happens to you. You are only responsible for how you respond. And in that narrow space between event and response lies more freedom than most people ever use in their entire lives. To understand why this idea has survived for 2,000 years, you have to picture the man who lived it under the most extreme pressure imaginable, Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. Marcus wasn't a philosopher sitting comfortably in a quiet room, free to think without consequence. He ruled an empire during a plague that killed millions. He fought wars on the frontier for years at a time, sleeping in military camps instead of palaces. He was surrounded by advisors who flattered him, enemies who wanted him dead, and a constant stream of people demanding his time, his judgment, and his emotional energy. And yet, at night, in his tent, he wrote to himself. Not for an audience. Not for glory. He wrote private reminders to stay disciplined, to stop being provoked by people who couldn't control themselves, to stop wasting his limited time on earth reacting to things beneath his character. Those private notes eventually became one of the most influential books in human history, Meditations. What's striking is that Marcus wasn't naturally calm. He wasn't emotionally numb or detached from life. He felt frustration, grief, and anger like anyone else. The difference is that he refused to let those feelings drive the car. He treated emotional discipline the way an athlete treats physical training, as a skill built through repetition, not a personality trait you either have or don't. This is the heart of Stoic philosophy. Other people can throw insults, criticism, indifference, and manipulation at you all day long, but none of it becomes power over you unless you hand it to them. The moment you stop reacting on command, you take that power back. And once people sense they can no longer pull your strings, something remarkable happens. They stop trying. Not because you got louder or more aggressive, but because you became quietly, unshakably unreachable. Lesson 1. You cannot control what happens, only your response. This is the foundation everything else is built on, and it sounds almost too simple to matter. But sit with it for a second. When someone insults you, there are actually two separate events happening. The first is their words, something completely outside your control. The second is your response, something entirely inside your control. Most people collapse these two events into one, as if the insult and the reaction are a single automatic package. Stoicism's entire framework rests on prying them apart. Here's what that looks like in real life. Imagine a coworker mocks your idea in a meeting. The untrained response is instant. Your face flushes, your chest tightens, and within half a second you're already crafting a defensive comeback. You've handed control of your nervous system to someone who probably wasn't even thinking that hard about you. Now imagine the same insult lands on someone who has trained themselves to separate the event from the reaction. They notice the sting. They notice the urge to defend themselves. And then, critically, they pause before acting on it. That pause is the entire difference between a reactive person and a disciplined one. Psychologists call this the gap between stimulus and response. Neurologically, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, fires before your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, even has a chance to weigh in. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress the alarm. It asks you to notice it, and then choose your next move deliberately instead of letting the alarm choose it for you. Lesson 2. Silence can be strength. Most people believe that not responding to an accusation, an insult, or a provocation means you've lost. Silence feels like weakness. It feels like letting someone win. But watch what actually happens when someone lashes out and gets no reaction. Their energy has nowhere to go. An argument requires two participants throwing fuel on the fire. When one person refuses to add fuel, the fire has no choice but to burn out. Think about the people you respect most. Chances are, they aren't the loudest people in the room. They're the ones who don't feel the need to explain every decision, defend every choice, or answer every accusation thrown their way. Their calm isn't emptiness, it's restraint. And restraint, paradoxically, reads as strength far more convincingly than any comeback ever could. This doesn't mean silence is always the answer. Sometimes you need to speak up, set a boundary, or correct a misunderstanding. But there's a difference between speaking from calm intention and reacting from wounded pride. One is a choice. The other is a reflex wearing the costume of a choice. Lesson 3. Create a pause before you respond. This is the lesson that changes everything, because it's the one practical tool that makes the first two lessons usable in real life instead of just theoretical. Before you respond to anything that provokes you, a text, a comment, a look, an accusation, ask yourself one question. Is this worth my energy? That single sentence does something remarkable. It interrupts the automatic reaction loop just long enough for your rational mind to catch up to your emotional one. In that half-second pause, you get to choose instead of react. And most of the time, when you actually ask the question honestly, the answer is no. Most provocations aren't worth the energy they demand. Marcus Aurelius wrote something similar to himself centuries ago. That he could always find a certain peace by refusing to add his own judgment of, "This is terrible," onto whatever difficulty crossed his path. The event itself rarely destroys people. It's the story they immediately tell themselves about the event. "This is disrespectful. This means they don't value me. This proves I'm not good enough." That does the damage. The pause isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about creating just enough space to decide whether the emotion deserves to run the show. Lesson 4. Detach your self-worth from other people's opinions. Here's a question worth sitting with. If a stranger with no knowledge of your life, your effort, or your character insulted you, would you take it seriously? Probably not. So why does the same insult sting so much more when it comes from someone you know? The answer is that most people have quietly outsourced their sense of self-worth to other people's approval. Every compliment becomes a deposit. Every criticism becomes a withdrawal. And when your entire emotional bank account depends on how others perceive you, you're never actually in control of your own peace. They are. Stoicism draws a sharp line here. Other people's opinions of you are not facts. They are reflections of their own mood, their own insecurities, their own limited perspective in that exact moment. Someone's judgment of you says far more about them than it does about your actual worth or character. This doesn't mean you should ignore all feedback or become arrogant. It means your core sense of who you are should be anchored to your own values and effort, not to a popularity contest you never agreed to enter. Lesson 5. Emotional control is discipline, not weakness. There's a persistent myth that calmness under pressure means you don't care, or that you're somehow emotionally shut down. The opposite is true. It takes far more strength to feel a surge of anger and choose stillness than it does to simply let the anger fly. Think of emotional control the way you'd think of physical strength. Nobody looks at a disciplined athlete and says their restraint in the gym, the controlled reps, the measured breathing, is a sign of weakness. It's the opposite. Control under pressure is the entire point of training. The person who stays composed while being provoked isn't suppressing their humanity. They've simply trained a muscle that most people never bother to train, the ability to feel something intensely and still choose their next move on purpose. And here's the psychological payoff. The less predictable and reactive you become, the less useful you are as a target. People provoke others because reactions are rewarding to watch. Take that reward away, and most provocation quietly stops. Have you ever caught yourself reacting to something within seconds, only to wish afterward you'd paused for just a moment longer? What's the hardest situation you've faced where staying calm felt almost impossible? Tell us in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what helps someone else who's silently struggling with the same thing right now. Understanding these ideas intellectually is one thing. Living them is another. Here's how to actually build this into your daily life. Start small. Don't try to become an unshakable Stoic overnight. That's a setup for failure. Instead, pick one recurring trigger in your life. Maybe it's a specific person who tends to push your buttons, or a specific situation, like being interrupted in meetings. For the next week, your only job is to notice the moment the trigger hits, and insert the pause. Ask the one question, is this worth my energy? You don't even have to change your behavior yet, just practice noticing. Next, build a simple physical anchor for the pause. Something as small as one slow breath before you respond to a provocative text, or counting to 3 before you speak in a heated conversation. This isn't about performing calm. It's about giving your rational brain a fighting chance to catch up to your emotional one. Watch for the most common mistake people make when they first try this, mistaking suppression for control. Swallowing your anger and pretending it doesn't exist isn't stoicism, it's a pressure cooker with the lid on. Real emotional discipline means acknowledging what you feel honestly, and then choosing your response deliberately, rather than either exploding or bottling it up. Also, get in the habit of separating facts from stories. When something upsets you, write down, even mentally, what actually happened, in one neutral sentence. Then notice the interpretation you added on top of it. "She didn't reply to my message," is a fact. "She's ignoring me because she doesn't respect me," is a story. Most emotional pain lives in the story, not the fact. Over time, something shifts. Situations that used to hijack your entire day start passing through you in minutes instead of hours. People who used to be able to provoke you with a single comment start losing that power, because you're no longer supplying the reaction they're used to receiving. You start noticing you have more energy at the end of the day, simply because you're not spending it fighting invisible battles in your head. Your relationships often improve too, because you start responding to people from a place of intention instead of wounded reflex. Everything we've covered today comes back to one core truth: you were never actually powerless in those moments that used to wreck you. The insult, the silence, the disrespect, none of it was ever strong enough to control you on its own. It only ever had the power you handed it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, buried people he loved, and faced betrayal from those closest to him. And still found a way to protect his inner peace, not by controlling the world around him, but by mastering the one thing that was always his to control: his own response. That same power is available to you right now, in whatever situation is currently testing your patience. The coworker who dismisses you. The family member who knows exactly which words will hurt. The silence that makes you spiral. None of them can touch the part of you that decides how to respond, unless you let them. This isn't a switch you flip once and forget. It's a practice, built one pause at a time, one unanswered provocation at a time, one moment of choosing stillness over reflex at a time. Some days you'll do it well. Other days you won't. That's not failure. That's exactly what training looks like. But somewhere along that practice, you'll notice the shift Marcus Aurelius wrote about in his tent almost 2,000 years ago. The day you stop reacting to everything around you is the day you stop being controlled by everything around you. And on that day, you become something far more powerful than someone who wins every argument. You become someone nothing can touch. Thank you for staying with this one until the end. That alone tells me you're serious about building a calmer, stronger mind. If this video gave you even one moment of clarity, do me a favor. Like it, subscribe if you haven't yet, and share it with someone in your life who needs to hear this today. And if you're ready to keep building this kind of mental strength, the next video in this series goes even deeper into turning Stoic wisdom into daily habits. I'll see you there.